Most beginners have a very predictable pattern of mistakes that they make when they're learning to knit. We can collect them, troubleshoot them, and put the solutions in one video. And that's the video you're watching now. So if you're a beginner and you're struggling with specific mistakes that you can't figure out, this video is likely to answer one of them for you. Here are the 5 most common mistakes that I've noticed new knitters making, how to troubleshoot them, and how to prevent them. The first mistake that new knitters love to make is pulling their yarn tight after every single stitch. It is like moths to a light. It is irresistible. Now, if you're a beginner knitter, it's likely that you haven't learned how to tension your yarn yet. That's okay. I don't really think it's necessary. It can come later. But because you're not tensioning your yarn and you're dropping it in between every stitch, it feels so satisfying to just yank that stitch tight as soon as you complete it. And I urge you, beginner knitters, please do not yank the yarn after every stitch. It's better to have it be loose and sloppy than to yank it tight, because on the next row, those stitches are going to be close to impossible to insert your needle into, and you are going to be so frustrated that you will not want to continue. I've seen beginners practically give up just because of this. Even if your knitting looks really sloppy and really loose, that's okay. It will naturally tighten itself up over time as you get better at tensioning. It's easier to deal with loose stitches than tight stitches. Resist the urge. You'll thank me later. The second mistake that new knitters make is accidental stitches, and we most often see accidental yarn overs as our added stitches. This is why a lot of new knitters' swatches will look kind of like a quadrilateral instead of a square. It's because additional stitches are added throughout the project, and those stitches often look like holes. It's another reason why if your knitting's full of holes, it's probably because of accidental yarn overs. So how do you make an accidental yarn over, and where do they most often happen? An accidental yarn over can happen in the first stitch of your row, when instead of having your yarn come from the back of your knitting, it comes from the front. It'll stretch out and pull your first stitch over the top of the needle, creating a false second stitch. By knitting that false second stitch, they are adding a stitch every row. It's super easy to fix. Just make sure your yarn is coming from the back of your knitting every time. You take a look at that first stitch and make sure that it is one singular stitch and not 2. This happens in the middle of the row, kind of the same way it happened at the front of the row. You're bringing the yarn over the top of the needle instead of around the back of your work. So we're always making sure the yarn is coming from the back. And if you put down your knitting and pick it up again mid-row, this is often when this will happen. We put it down, we walk away, we come back. Where was I? The yarn's coming from the wrong place. Just always make sure to bring the yarn around the back of the needle before you knit your next stitch, and you should avoid accidental yarn overs. It's also common for beginner knitters to add an extra stitch by knitting the same stitch twice. And the reason this will happen is they insert the needle into their stitch, wrap the yarn around the back. Wait, where was I? And they'll just start the whole process over. Insert this needle in, wrap the yarn around, bring it through. Only now there are 2 loops around the needle instead of 1, and so this will create an extra stitch on your next row. The way that we prevent this is if you are in the middle of a stitch and you're not sure where you are and you want to make sure that you get it right, just pull the needle out and start that stitch over. You won't really lose any significant time, and it will prevent you from adding that extra stitch. The final easy way to add an accidental stitch is by lifting up the bar in between stitches or knitting into the stitch below. Sometimes we stick our needle into the wrong spot and we can knit it. You can knit lots of different spots on knitting, and when we do it intentionally, it can create really cool design elements, but when you do it accidentally, you just wind up with a bunch of extra stitches. So just making sure that we're sticking the needle into the stitch itself, not under the bar next to it or the stitch below. We'll make sure we always have the right number of stitches on our needle. Now, another super common mistake that beginner knitters make is switching directions in the middle of the row. The most common time that this happens is if you are knitting, you put your project down, you pick it up again, and you're not sure which direction you were knitting in, so you just kind of take your best guess and start knitting again. This can wind up with you working on the wrong side of the work, and it can add a wedge of stitches to your fabric. The technical term for this is a short row, but you're not really doing a proper short row here. It's a mistaken short row. If you were knitting in stockinette stitch, which is knitting on one side and purling on the other side, it can also lead to a purl bump on a knitted side, which can look like a textural difference that some beginners aren't looking for. In order to prevent this, you always want to make sure the yarn is coming from the right-hand needle. So if you pick up your knitting and you're in the middle of a row, whether you're knitting continental style or English style, the yarn is coming from your right hand. That should solve the problem. Another super common struggle that new knitters have is looking at their stitches and realizing they don't look like that perfect rainbow shape. They look more like an X. and they stand out and they don't look quite right, but you're not 100% sure why, those are twisted stitches. And there are a couple of ways that they can happen. One really common way to twist your stitches is inserting your needle into the back of the stitch instead of the front of the stitch. And we usually talk about front leg and back leg when we talk about knitting. And so inserting your needle into the back leg of the stitch instead of the front leg of the stitch will automatically twist your stitches. Another really common way of twisting stitches is to wrap the yarn from front to back instead of back to front around your needle. Just making sure that we're always inserting the needle into the front leg of the yarn and wrapping the yarn around the needle in the right direction will eliminate this accidental twisted stitch. But it's a super common beginner mistake, and often beginners will get to an advanced beginner level. They may even be knitting their first sweater before they realize they're twisting all their knit stitches. So figuring it out and troubleshooting it from the start will save you some heartache later. The final super common beginner mistake that I see often is those ladders that you'll see in your knitting, and those are dropped stitches. The way that happens is instead of knitting a stitch, it just kind of falls off the needle and drops down. It leaves this ladder shape behind, and you'll usually see the little top of the stitch sitting out without anything to hold on to. There are really easy ways to fix a drop stitch. You can look up drop stitch tutorials. Usually it uses a crochet hook to just loop that stitch back up and onto your needle. Depending on how far you've knitted past it, it may look a little tight when you pick it up. That's not a huge deal. If you've put your needles down and you pick them back up again, I would try and double check and make sure that none of your stitches dropped off. And if they did, you can loop them back onto your needle with your fingers and just make sure they're in place before you move on to knit again. All of these little mistakes are super common. Every single beginner knitter is going to make them at least one time, but none of them are catastrophic. None of them will prevent you from becoming a great knitter, except for one. There is one mistake that beginner knitters make that stops them from ever learning how to knit. And that mistake is not being willing to live with your mistakes. The beginners who I've taught who see a mistake and rip out their knitting every single time to start over are the ones who give up before they ever really get into it. They never actually get to make anything. They just wind up ripping out and starting over, ripping out and starting over. As a beginner, you are going to make a mistake. And so my best advice for knitters who struggle with this is to surrender to and commit to the sloppy swatch. A sloppy swatch is just a square of fabric. It's not a headband, it's not a scarf, it's not a cowl, it's not a sweater, it's not a bag, it's not gloves. It is literally a square. You're gonna commit to making a square. You're gonna cast on and you're gonna knit a square. And you are going to surrender to the fact that it is sloppy. There are gonna be holes in it. There's gonna be weird strings hanging out. You don't know why. It's gonna be shaped like this instead of like a square. Surrender to it. As you continue practicing, it will look better. And if you notice that you're twisting your stitches, that's cool. That's great that you noticed. Now you can correct it moving forward. And if you notice that you're doing accidental yarn overs, that's awesome that you noticed. Now you have the tools to avoid it in the future. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. And that sloppy swatch is going to be a document of and a testament to and an artifact of you learning something new. You not knowing how to do something and pushing through the discomfort and pushing through the struggles to learn something new. And over the course of that fabric, it's gonna get neater and neater. It's gonna be so satisfying to look at. And when you get to that point that you feel confident, like, yes, I can make something for real now, you're going to cast off and you're going to set that sloppy swatch aside. You're going to save it. You're not going to throw it out. You're not going to rip it out. You're going to save it. And you're going to make a couple of projects and your skills are going to grow and your stitches are going to get more even. And then you're going to go back in that drawer and you're going to pull out that sloppy swatch and you're going to say, wow, I can't believe I started here and I got all the way here. I can't believe how much my skills grew. That's amazing. I'm so proud of myself. So give yourself the gift and the benefit of not starting over whenever you make a mistake, but pushing forward and knowing that making mistakes is part of being a beginner. That's maybe the biggest struggle. It feels uncomfortable to make mistakes, especially as an adult, if you're learning as an adult. So push through the mistakes, just keep moving forward. Hopefully this video gave you some skills and some tools to diagnose, recognize, and fix and troubleshoot the mistakes that you're making so that it feels a little bit better moving forward. I wish you so much luck on your knitting journey, and if you have knitting questions, please drop them down below so I can answer them and help you as you learn how to knit. I'm excited for you. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this helpful. Really enjoyed talking knitting with you today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!